Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshe Lewis. Really delighted to be joined by my friend and co-host, Kathleen Bradley. Welcome, young lady. How are you doing?
Thank you. I am doing fine, and just a pleasure to be here as always. And all the shows are so exciting, and this one's going to be even more exciting.
Sure, we have a lot of your
Kind
friends
of happen to know this guy, and he's done so
Yeah.
many wonderful things in the industry, and especially if you're a Tyler Perry fan, man, you're going to learn a lot about this guy.
Sure,
We're going to really dish the dirt a little bit, just a little bit. I don't want him to start sweating already. Makeup. No,
he sent us a prescript.
I know we got it.
Yeah, he told us, don't bring up this, don't bring up that. So
we're good here.
It's not rehearsed.
You'll be comfortable.
All right.
A pleasure. Peter Parros, your legend precedes you, your reputation. Like she was mentioning, Tyler Perry, Have Nots. But even before that, Young and the Restless, I mean, you were on that for such a while. And I know continue to take on some dynamic roles. So we love here kind of turning back the clock of time and just finding out, how did you get into business, get bitten by acting, and just get the inspiration to not let this go?
Well, first off, thank you for having me here. Pleasure to be here with y'all. And I started out, I thought I was going to be a dental technician, which is what my dad did. My dad had a dental lab in West LA, and through a strange set of circumstances, I ended up working for a company that made miniatures for movies.
And what were miniatures?
So back before CGI, you would actually make, like if there was a show called Project UFO. So we would build the spaceships every year. When somebody would have an alien sighting, we would actually build, it would probably be about so big, a spaceship based on the description that they made. So things were done in miniatures. We did, for the first Star Trek movie, we did all the hand props. So we did all their phasers and tricorders and all that different stuff. And there was a magazine outright. So first it was special effects, or International Modeler, then Special Effects Modeler, about how miniatures were being done, used in movies. And I was a managing editor of that magazine. And that was just so much more exciting to me than making tea.
Absolutely, than making tea.
Day after day.
So part of the way I know Kathleen is through my cousin, Justin Lord, who is also an actor. And he was involved in a theater company called American Theater Arts. And I had seen him in plays and on commercials. And I hit up Justin. I was like, I think I want to do this acting thing, but I didn't do it in school or high school or any of that kind of stuff. So I was like, what do I have to do? And he said, come check out American Theater Arts. And I took classes there, and they had a program, a conservatory, they called it, in addition to the theater space, which was near the Pantages. It was actually the old Hollywood mortuary that had been converted into a equity waiver theater space. They had two theaters, a 99-seat theater, and then the smaller one, I think, was about 55 or 60 seats. So they would do productions, but also have classes. And that's how I got in, first doing theater and commercials. And then predominantly I've done television. It's a little bit of feature work, but mostly television.
Sure.
How did you go about securing your first agent? How long did it take you, or what happened?
It's interesting. So part of the theater thing, what happened is I enjoy the craft, but I know a lot of actors then that were studying and doing things, but not working as an actor. And I was having a conversation with my dad about wanting to really work more as an actor and do things. And I was still taking classes and working with my dad in the dental lab. And he was like, well, if you want to act, then, you're making money. You know actors, put some money together and rent a space and, and act. And I thought about that for a couple of weeks, and I was like, I want somebody to pay me that.
Right.
So that was what shifted me in terms of, what does that mean? So first off, I got good headshots. And at that time, you would have these commercial composites. So it wasn't just a headshot. It was like 5 or 6 different shots of you in different costumes and things that you had to do. So I did that. And then I started looking for an agent, and I was doing showcases. So at that time, they would have either scenes showcases where you would have a scene that you rehearsed with another actor, and then they would invite agents to come and see you. And they also had casting director workshops where you're not paying to audition,
That's
Sure,
right.
but you're paying to do cold readings with different casting people. So between those two, I got my first agent, Sid Craig, who I don't even think is around anymore in the industry, but through doing a scene workshop. And then I got my first acting job. At that time, there were two different unions where we had Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, which was more video stuff. But Screen Actors Guild, you had to work in film or commercials or hour-long shows to get your union card. But AFTRA, you could buy your card. So I had some money, so I could buy my card. At that time. It was, I don't know, maybe about $800 or something. And so my first job was on a soap opera, was on Days of Our Lives. I was a day player on Days of Our Lives. And so getting that card, being able to buy that card, helped me get my first job, because I could say, even though I didn't have a long resume, I could say I had my union card.
Yeah, there you go. That made a big difference back then,
Back then,
especially.
whether you were union or non-union. I was like, well, if there's a union I can buy into,
That's right.
let me do that to just get that little step. But that's how it all started.
Right. And just because you're mentioning your parents, and it's always so near and dear to our hearts, I just wanted to bring up this piece of trivia, really, because our former guest, Shireen Crutchfield, you may have been here during some of her interview, she was on the cover of 17. And my understanding is that your mom was a model, and they would not put her picture, although they had promised to put her picture on the cover of 17.
Yes, my mother was a beautiful person outside and inside. She was... in New York, they had a contest called Miss Subway. And this was, so I guess it had to be back in the maybe early 40s.
Yeah.
That she was the first Black Miss Subway, and they would have a contest, and whoever won this beauty contest would get their picture put up in the subway.
Right.
And I still have that, the Miss Subway thing. She was the first Black Miss Subway. But when she was in high school, they had a contest, 17 magazine in New York, for the most beautiful young woman. And I think it was in high schools that they did it, outside, inside, whatever. And the judges chose my mother. And 17 magazine reneged. And we didn't even know about it until after my mom had passed.
Oh, wow.
And in her effects, we found this newspaper article of them talking about that, and how the judges said we weren't told to judge based on race. We were told to judge based on who was the most beautiful person. And that was my mom. She was very special.
No, absolutely. Do you sense some of that has rubbed off in some other elements?
I hope so. Yeah. She was definitely, I think my faith comes from my mother, my Christian faith. Just, she was very much put God first. So that was definitely her.
How was it though, growing up you grew up from New York? Yes.
So I was born in New York, in Brooklyn, and grew up my early age there. Moved just before I started school. We moved out to California. So I went back. I had family there. So we grew up like Santa Monica, Malibu kind of area.
Excuse me,
we
poor thing.
Well,
did you ever get a chance to go to Watts? Okay.
We lived in
It's
Malibu.
usually the opposite way.
Malibu was like living in the country, you know. And then later, in later years, I went back when I started doing soap work. I had done some Young Restless a little bit out here, and then I got cast on One Life to Live. And I always said I wanted to go back to New York and work out there, but go working.
Right.
So first I did One Life to Live for a couple of years, and that was like 94 to I think 96. And then I did about 8 years on As the World Turns. So
they shot
that took me
both of them there?
they were both shot on the East Coast.
That is correct.
So it used to be they had, more soaps on the East Coast than on the West Coast. And then slowly that all died out, and now the soaps that remain are all being shot on the West Coast.
It's true.
So it's just about the intensity of that type of work and how it prepared you maybe for other things, because the script's changing every single day, literally, and you've got to learn a new set of lines. So it's really a lot more intense than maybe a movie.
Yeah. And it definitely prepared me to work with Tyler Perry, because
he's always right.
Fast. But so soaps, and I think also the theater background was really helpful, because that helps you to develop a character and understand your relationship and have some kind of technique to be a foundation for how you're working. And then being on a soap, we would do often what they call six-packing, which is 6 shows in 5 days, because you've got to have enough shows to be on all the time. Even when you're off for the holidays or whatever, you have to be ahead. So to give an idea for people, most feature films, they might shoot like 4 or 5 pages a day. On a primetime show, maybe they would consider a full day like 11 pages, something like that, 11, 12 pages. On a soap opera, you're shooting like a show at least a day. So that's 50 pages a day. Now, you're not going to necessarily be in every scene, but you might, as an actor, have 20 pages in a day, 25 pages in a day.
Wow.
And you are doing your lines, blocking everything that you have to remember for the cameras, because you're going live and cutting. So you've got to do that all in that one day. Right. And then the next day, it's fresh.
Right.
There's a whole new set of lines, and I learned a technique that helped me based on where I was, because a lot of times you're sort of repeating the storyline for people who might have missed the previous day. Yep. So you got to, okay, now, was I saying this yesterday?
It all starts running together, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you have to kind of keep it separate. Because I had a similar conversation with them yesterday, but no, I was in the garage, and now I'm in the kitchen. And so that technique helped me to move a lot faster, be comfortable with moving faster. So jumping ahead to when we were on Tyler's show, by the time we got to the end, we would shoot a season, which would be maybe 20 episodes. I think the last 20 episodes we shot in less than 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, we had pages.
It's a lot.
I have a good friend that's a director, and he was working on, I think it was The Game, which was shooting when we were shooting in Atlanta. And I went to see him. He's like, "Oh, we got a big day, today." They were still shooting. And he said, we've got like 17 pages, and we got to go through. I said, "Man, I just came off the set. We had 98 pages."
Oh, wow.
He's like, "No." And I had the call sheet, and I could pull up the call. He's like, "That's crazy." But Tyler had built his studio. You couldn't do it anywhere else. Just the way he designed his studio was genius. So he had everything built to shoot. So it's pre-lit. The sound is there. He had this green screen. We'd use a lot of green screen. And he had it structured. So a lot of times, say if you're on a film show, you have to gauge location moves and crew moves. The way he had it flowing, you just had to remember your lines. But technically, it was conducive to that.
Were they shooting like 2 different scenes at the same time? A lot of times, or 2 or 3 scenes at the same time.
We would shoot. Well, what he would do is he was shooting sort of film style, but 3 cameras. So we had what's called a PED. We would say 2 steadies in a PED. So that means 2 steady cams, which is for the audience who wouldn't know what that is. Steady cams are cameras that it used to be on most sets when you're doing what's called the dolly shot. You have to lay track.
Right.
You have to relight. All that takes time. The steady cam is a harness that the cameraman wears that allows them to move and walk around, and it's smooth. So they would have one steady camera that's doing a wide shot. I mean, one pedestal camera that's doing the wide, and then the steady cam would be doing over the shoulders, the singles. So that would allow us to hopefully get everything in 1 or 2 takes, or he's sort of editing in his head as he's shooting. So sometimes you feel like, I don't know if that was right. He's like, it's okay. I'm going to be on the other person on that. So they would either edit around, or most things were shot in 1 or 2 takes.
Really, because I know he always has a lot of dialogue and long scenes. The longest scenes I've ever seen is outside of Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
And I believe that he keeps going on and on. I don't know how you guys do it.
Sure.
So part of that
tough.
is theater, because he's used to writing for theater. So in a play, you have a single set and you have these long scenes that go on. Whereas in film and television, you know, a half hour of theater might take place in one location. A half hour in television might be probably 9 or 10 locations. So that's why his scenes were long. And also with him as the writer, producer, director, if there's a line change or something you want to do on a normal scripted show, you have to get approval from the producers or the writers. Can we change this? Can we do that? We would just say on set, can we do this? And sometimes you'd just be like, okay. As we got on, like I had a lot of my stuff was with John Schneider, who was on Dukes of Hazzard. So he did a lot of stuff. And we would say we have an idea for a scene. He's like, well, let's do it and shoot it. And if he liked it, he'd keep it. If he
a lot of improv, he let you do a lot of improv.
We did a bit of improv on more like on the end of a scene.
Okay.
So we would do what's scripted and then add a little extra.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, this is what was crazy. So sometimes when a show is short, so they write it, generally the idea is a page a minute for a script. So if a show is, say, 60 pages they write, but as we're acting, it might go faster or something might happen. And the show comes up short. So what he would do is after we finish a scene, he would feed us more lines, almost line by line.
Right.
And he'd say, okay, we're short. We need the script supervisor might say, we need another 2 minutes.
Okay.
He said, okay. So, okay, you say this, and then you say this, and then you say this, and then you say that. And sometimes he'd give us maybe 3 or 4 lines each to go. But sometimes it was almost line by line, which is weird. You have to make a decision on the spot on how you feel and how you're going to deliver that line. And like life, you don't know how they're going to come back.
Yeah, that's
You know, what the response is going to be to what you say. So
your delivery,
Yeah, with acting techniques, there's a lot of different methods. But there's something called the Meisner technique, which is very much about hearing and responding to what they give you back. It's not even the dialogue. Sometimes there's a repetition exercise where you say the same line over and over, but you adjust to how the person is saying that line. And so that's to help you respond in the moment to what the person is saying and how they're saying it. So that helps in those kind of circumstances where in your head you're going, okay, I hope this works. But they edit it all together. And as an audience, you would never know that we were getting that last half of that scene line by line.
Right.
And so it was a great experience.
Even though it may seem such a basic question, I think a lot of beginner, because you are the actor's actor, I mean, this level of detail is so helpful for the audience. Just being able to memorize lines, it's just a tip or a trick, because some that are starting out, this seems daunting. Forget the last piece of trying to do it verbatim, pretty much call and response.
Right. Well, I think it's evolved over the years for me. When I first started out, what I learned was write your lines out by hand. And that's when I was doing theater. So whatever it was, it would be a whole play. And I would just write out all my lines in the play by hand. And there's something kind of like, I guess it's like a muscle memory that you have, that writing it out. So what that began to do is then even as I would see the script or writing, I would know where on the page. It's a weird thing that kind of develops. It's a muscle. So I know, okay, now we're on the right-hand page halfway down.
Right, exactly.
This is where I am. So that's the way it started. And then, of course, as you're rehearsing and you go through, there was something we would call it speeding through your lines. So it's not even trying to act it. You're just trying to say with the other actor in the scene, how fast can you get through these lines? And you would do that in rehearsal, and also sometimes before the play started, we would speed through the whole play. So it might be an hour and a half long play that you could speed through in 30 minutes.
Right.
You know,
without all the moving around.
No blocking, anything like that. Then as it developed over the years, and this is part of what I learned in the soap side, was I would associate myself, and this goes back to the Greek times, associate my lines to where I was standing.
Right.
So I know at this part of if we're in a kitchen set, okay, I know at this part, I'm saying this when I'm over by the refrigerator. And then when I'm over by the sink, I'm saying something else.
Exactly.
This is where I'm saying this line. And so that comes from the old Greek poets had a system of going through a place where they started. So that's when they would say, so where was I in a story? That was part of a memory
literally
technique.
And figuratively.
Not only where was I in the story, but where was I physically? And if I can remember where I was, then I can pick up and go from there. Because sometimes you'll be shooting and you'll be at the end of the scene on soaps and they'll say, okay, well, let's pick up from we're going to go back to this line. So you got to go back in your head. Okay, where was I emotionally in that line? Where was I standing physically? And then go from there. So it might be a very passionate moment, but usually that's where people go up in their lines. Because you tend to get more emotional, in order to keep the flow, you've got to remember the lines. And so you go back. So I would say first off, writing, and then associating lines to location.
There you go.
And then now I have I call it a disposable memory. I could look at a sheet of dialogue and probably memorize it in 2 minutes.
Whoa, good for you.
But then 2 days from now, but if I looked at it and then memorize it, and then you said, give it back to you in a relatively short time.
I'm just the opposite. I can look at it and I don't know. And then 2 days from then, I'm like, still don't know it. No, it is an art to learn the lines. I remember I read somewhere, or either one of the older actors, and I forget his name, God rest his soul, he said, they asked, how do you remember your lines in the movies? He said, I read the script 100 times. Somebody like Carl Malton or somebody, 100 times he would read that script. I always remember that. Now, I don't do that.
But you remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
No, I think it's an art and somewhat of a science. Talk to us about maybe the secret sauce, like what you feel made that series so successful, and then maybe even what you were trying to bring to the character, because it's a very, seductive
so
type of character you play.
It's interesting how that happened, and I'll tell you. So your first question, what made that special? I think we had an amazing cast. Angela, who was my wife that I work with, Angela Robinson, was amazing theater actress. A lot of the people were theater people that had backgrounds that were just experienced actors. I'll say it that way. And it was a very ethnically diverse cast. And I think that mix of character dynamics, the faith elements with the Hannah character, it was so many different levels where it wasn't that have and have not dynamic to the show, I think was part of what made it a hit. I always wanted to work with Tyler, but I don't consider myself a strong comedy actor. but he had a lot of dramatic films. And I said, and that was his first dramatic series. So before then, he had sitcom series, but this was his first dramatic show, and I think really kind of his baby. So he wrote and directed every scene. So he was on the set for every scene, for every bit of dialogue went through him. So it was really something special at that time. The OWN network was new, and that was their first scripted show. Right. Was Tyler's show. He had another sitcom, but we were their first scripted drama. They were doing reality programming before then. So I think those elements coming together, and there was some question about, with my representation about that time, whether I should do it. I was like, this is Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Right. I just that combination. I said, this is going to be something that it's going to be historic television, and I want to be a part of it.
And are you comfortable teasing out that element? Do you sense that it's either the newness, or you had really been on basically major blockbuster soaps and strong pictures all that time?
And so this is kind of, so with my role in a faith thing, so the audition was probably 4 lines. It was a very small audition. It was, David was Veronica's husband, a certified financial planner. That was the character description. Right. And so when it came back and they wanted me to do this, my agent was like, this is wait. And
Isn't too small.
It was too small. And it just wasn't at that time, the feeling was the the network wasn't in their mind doing great things. And my sister was going to T.D. Jakes' church at the time. Tyler had been there, and she was, for something related to my mom, trying to get a hold of Tyler. And she had called me just before my final audition on this thing. And she mentioned this service, and the message in the service was, don't despise the day of small beginnings in Scripture. So that was something that, to me, I was like, okay, Lord, I get it. Thank you. The message is, don't worry about what it is starting out. There was something that I had wanted to do, that I desired, that I could see in this, that don't let the ego make you miss this opportunity. So when I auditioned with the character, I auditioned in my regular voice. As the scripts came in, just before we started shooting, it came up that my character, it was, John Cryer was my best friend. So John Schneider, it was his 50th birthday. That was the opening scene. And my character is older than his character. So I said, okay, so I got to be older than this guy. The first day shooting, they didn't get to me. And I was watching the show, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now we're in the South, we're in Georgia, and nobody was really speaking with a Southern accent. So I said, okay, so let me think I went home that night. I said, I want to be a Southern gentleman character. And I got to be older. My energy, I feel, is kind of young, so I said, I got to slow down, lower my voice, a little something Southern. And suddenly now, I said, a little seriousness in this. And this was David Harrington.
That's right.
So I said, that's what I must do. So I said, let me try this and see. So we had our first scene, and I went and did it. One take. He was like, oh, great, cut. Let's go. I said, so what, did you like that? He said, yeah. I said, yes. What did I just do? I said, I got to remember this character. So it was just kind of a general idea that I had to then make specific to what this guy was. So that was kind of how that character came, really as a response to what the scenes were, because I didn't know when I got the part that David was going to be a judge.
Right.
And I didn't know, just where he was. And suddenly, again, where initially, I think the agreement was, I think 7 out of the first 13, and I ended up being in 12 out of the first 13. So it was very different than what it appeared coming in, but it was the best experience.
I remember it. I used to watch it faithfully when it first came on.
Yeah.
Did you actually, well, I guess you just stayed there in Atlanta. You didn't move there, or did you move there at any point?
I didn't move there when we would shoot. So initially, I think we were there maybe about 2 months the first season. So that's how compressed shooting got in terms of how we worked. But again, going in, my understanding when we were trying to figure out what this show was, I said, it's a soap. It's a primetime soap.
Right.
So, I kept saying to people when they were trying to figure, well, what's he doing? I said, it's a soap. It's think like Dallas or, Knots Landing, Falcons Crest, all those kind of things. That's what this show is. And so the first, I had at the time an uncle that was living just outside of Georgia. So the first season I went and stayed with him. And then later I rented a place. And then near the end, I got a condo that I still have there. So I would stay there, but I'm back and forth.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. But when we would shoot, and it was great. And I think that's part of the dynamic that made the cast so close was we were from LA and New York. Crystal Fox, who played Hannah, she was the only one that actually lived in Georgia. And everybody else was coming from somewhere else there. So we bonded really close, and we would go to Crystal's house. That was like the gathering spot where we would have our casts. I don't even say party, just hang out. After work, we would go hang out and eat together. And it's not like everybody was rushing to get home to whatever sort of real life was. We had this period away as casts that was very special.
How long did that show run? About 6 years, 6 seasons or something?
It might have been 6 years, but it was 8 seasons.
Okay.
So, and
that's good.
I don't
Unheard
remember
of.
what it was, somewhere around 150 episodes, I think,
wonderful.
that we did that show.
God.
And it was, and here's the thing about that. The OWN network was covered. It's a cable network that at the time I think had about 80% of the country covered. But on Tuesday nights, we were the #1 show for Black women on television, not just on cable, but on television. And we would get ratings that were higher than a lot of network shows, so.
Small beginning.
It's small beginning.
Wow.
In a place where they're like, I don't know if the network's going to make it, to suddenly it was a very successful.
Wonderful. It was indeed.
Yeah.
Tease out for us, although you've hinted at a bit, working with Tyler, seeing that level of work ethic and the things you feel like you've incorporated yourself.
I think Tyler is a very unique, special person. I used to say, I had an idea of doing a studio production studio, and I was like, at that studio, I was like, no, I don't have that work ethic. I don't want to work that hard. He is the hardest working man in show business.
For real.
He would do.
Yeah.
His work ethic was such that when we started out, there was our show. He had Love Thy Neighbor. I'm trying to think if he had 2. At one point, that first season, we would shoot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, half day Thursday. Then the other half day Thursday, Friday, he was recording Love Thy Neighbor. He would fly out Friday. Friday night, he would do a Medea show.
Right.
Friday night, 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday.
What?
Fly back Monday morning and be directing our show.
Ooh. Oh, my God.
So he was, and of course, he doesn't do that all year. He said he work hard and he play hard. But he had a vision, and I talked to him about this. I was like, did you imagine the studio? No, he had a vision, and he failed first a lot with this play that he was doing. And then after several years, he got his success and began to understand who his audience is. Mm-hmm. And he writes to that audience, and he's very clear on what he wants to say and who he's speaking to. And his system is a very non-Hollywood system. So people who had a lot of experience in the industry at first were like, well, why are we doing this? Why do we have to shoot so fast? And he would talk about, he worked on other films that I won't name, but he would talk about coming from them and directors who would do 40 takes in a scene. He was like, I don't understand that. Mm-hmm. But when he's on their set, he's like, that's what I do. If they want 40 takes, they get 40 takes. But if I get what I want in one or two, then I got it. He was in a position, and I think a lot of people don't understand this. He had so much success with his plays that before he did his first movie, he was very wealthy. And he was selling videos of those plays before. And when he was doing plays, one of the crew, I think it's okay to tell this story. One of the crew guys, they had an issue with the sound. So, we're shooting, and he's got his jet where he's flying back and forth to wherever in the country he's supposed to be doing the play. And as they're getting ready for this, whoever was over the sound was saying, well, we can't do this. We got a problem with the sound that the system. He's like, don't tell me you can't do it. Right. He's like, well, we can't. I mean, in order to make that happen, we'd have to have 40 guys working 20 hours a day to make it. Okay, so then don't tell me it can't happen. Mm-hmm. Tell me you need 40 guys working 20 hours a day to make it happen. Right. And I'll give you what you need for 40 guys working 20 hours a day to make it happen. But don't tell me. And that's his mentality, is don't tell me you can't do it. Right. Tell me, what do you need to make it happen? Absolutely. And I think that's a very different way of thinking. That, it is. Okay, so then what do we have to do to get you what you need to make that happen? Yeah. And that attitude, I think he brings to whatever his vision is. And his audience, we had a conversation about why he wouldn't have reviewers get his films beforehand. He's like, they don't understand it. It's not for them. Right. So they might get a bad review, and then it opens up and it's number one at the box office for the next 2 weeks. He said, it's not.
Yeah, I never did believe in some of those reviews, nor do I really like a lot of trailers. Some trailers, when people show trailers and movies and different TV things, they show half the thing. They show some, they give it away, give so much away. But his documentary, Maxine's Baby Boy. Yeah. If you guys, TV land, have not seen that yet, that was so incredible. And it definitely gives you a very good insight into Tyler's life and coming up and the way that it was told and how he put himself out there, and like you said, his failures and his success and what all that it took. And he is just, like you said, an incredible young man, and the things that he's done are just, I mean, there's nobody like him. He's one of a kind, and such a great person to pattern your life after if you have to. Just know, and like you say, just to keep going at it. You have to fail in order to succeed. A lot of people don't realize that. You got to keep picking yourself back
your
up.
way. I think, so with theater, there's something he says in his play, if you ever been to a live play, where he'll break what's called the fourth wall with the audience and stuff. And he says in there, there's Broadway and there's the Tyler Perry way. And that's what his audiences love, where they laugh and they break in character and do that. And I think the same thing, there has been a Hollywood way, and then a filmmaking and Tyler Perry way, which has helped make Atlanta now the #1 for film and television production. At least at the time we were working, there was more film and television production in Atlanta than New York and LA combined. Wow. And that has to do, not only with the facilities, but the tax break, on a business side.
It's a lot of things.
And politically, he's involved in different things. So there's a lot that makes that happen, and just understanding. So part of what I learned that I do apply for me is, what is it that I have to say, and who is it that I want to speak to, and really focus on that, as opposed to always trying to figure out what somebody else is trying to say. How do I fit into somebody else's program?
On that note, you're still doing amazing work and things like that. I know one of them, I think somebody was going in search of their parent, one of your more recent films, to basically encounter things they might not have expected. Talk to us about sort of what you look for in some of the newer roles, things you take on.
So it's just a role that I enjoy. I think it's a challenge now. You talk about new people coming into the industry. I wouldn't know how to advise somebody now coming in. It used to be about building relationship with casting directors and different. Now we have what's called self-tape, where I'm at home with my wife reading my lines and a videotaping. So you don't build rapport there. It's a very different thing. So I have some things that I'm writing. I look at a script, the way streaming has changed, and the pay for actors, and we have these special contracts now where I was having a conversation with my nephew, who's also an actor, who was talking to somebody who a friend of theirs is up and coming actress, had a breakout year, had 23, imagine this, 23 different roles that she had worked on, and it wasn't enough to support her.
Wow.
She still has to have her day job, where when I was coming up in this industry, if you got 2 national commercials and a guest spot, you were set for the year.
Really? They've changed.
That was, raising a family. That was great money.
It was. It's changed so much, like you say. And I remember I did one spot for Hallmark cards. This was been, my God, 30 or 40 years ago. No, 40 years ago. So really a long time ago. And I was in it that quick. And from that, just to give people an idea, I made like $20,000. They don't pay that anymore. They have the buyouts, and they have so many different things. Why we as SAG-AFTRA members have to fight for certain things, and it's just crazy. There's so many non-union and different kind of projects now.
So it's more about, what do I like the script? Do I like the role?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to do it, and not waiting for that thing that's going to pay? It used to be when there was a pilot season, that, things would come up, which used to be in the beginning, sort of like maybe late January to April, your agent would be like, okay, well, we don't know that we want to take this. We want to keep you available for pilot season to come up. Now it's just when the work comes and the opportunity comes, if it's something that I like and want to do, I do that. And then I have writing projects that I'm pitching, and that then you're up to the mercy of the whatever network or whoever it is that you're pitching it to, what it is that they're interested in, and trying to find people that want to buy what I want to write.
Yes.
Absolutely. An illustrious career. As we wrap up, what still keeps you energized and motivated as you look into roles, write?
I think, again, on the faith side, I'm at a point of just trusting what the Lord has for me, that He promises enough, and whatever will be enough. Be anxious for nothing. Sufficient to the day is the evil thereof, and just, blessed with a very good life. I've had a great career, great opportunities, had great relationships. From that, Lord willing, there'll be more. It's not like some other career where somebody's forcing me out or saying, okay, well, you have to retire now. As long as the opportunities come and I can remember the lines,
Oh my God.
I will continue to to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely a pleasure. Really been enjoyable just listening to some of the details and behind the scenes parts, but also just that education that you provide, even though some of it may seem so basic on ways to memorize lines, just critical for, young actors that are coming up and just being humble. I think that certainly comes across that you really have enjoyed it, but also been willing to put in the work and not put ego anywhere in that equation. Thanks so much.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank
It's been a
you. It's
pleasure.
been a pleasure, Peter.
All right.